It's great to be here with you all. At least with the background noise, we know you're all here and it's a real sense of community. I'm Vicki Allpress Hill. I'm founder and director of the Audience Connection based in Auckland, New Zealand. And I'm here today with my colleague Catherine Witten-Hannah to present this webinar on creating and curating digital content that helps you to engage with your audiences. At the Audience Connection, we work alongside organisations in the arts sector to help them navigate digital technology and tools to effectively engage with audiences. And this takes us into all sorts of territories of digital strategy, social media marketing, online marketing, analytics, website development and the like. Today's webinar is aimed to help you take a step back and think about content with the multiple social media channels in particular that you all have, as well as your websites and email. You are challenged with creating and distributing content, all of us are, and this remains quite a challenge for everyone. So whether you're right at the sort of beginning stages of still struggling with what to actually post on your social media channels, or whether you are doing this quite well already but need to really think more about what's working and what's not, this webinar is aimed to give you an overview of the key aspects of this area. So welcome to you all, and that's us at the Audience Connection. Catherine's going to be part presenting some of this with me, which is great, so I'll be handing over to her later in the session. So the four areas that we're going to cover today are what engagement means, ideas for content that is proven to achieve engagement, working with the algorithms, and some of our favourite tools that we use on a daily basis to curate and create this content. As arts managers, engagement is a term that we are very familiar with. We talk a lot about audience engagement, that state in which an audience member is connected to us, gaining a deeper understanding of our art, and inspired to tell others about our art and introduce them to it. Engagement is also a term we hear frequently when it comes to digital content and social media. Online, we don't just want followers and visits, we want engagement. And why is this? It's because engagement with our content gives us visibility, it extends our reach to potential new audiences. So when people shares intrinsically get additional impressions, which means more exposure for our brands and our company. This is the effect of what's called earned media, as opposed to owned media, which are our channels that we own, and paid media, the advertising we pay for. Its earned media is online word of mouth. So these tangible indications of engagement that we see in our analytics demonstrate that we're forming meaningful connections, at the very least capturing attention and interest. And engagement shows us that those viewing our content are starting to build a relationship with our brand. But not only that, engagement is the key to our content continuing to be delivered to the right people, given that we are at the mercy of social media algorithms that keep changing and determine who receives our content. So I just wanted to start out with a little personal story. So on Sunday, I visited my father, who unfortunately has dementia. He used to be an opera singer in the old days, semi-professional opera singer. And we had a wonderful breakthrough on Sunday where playing him some music from the 90s and 30s and 40s got him up singing and dancing. He remembered all the words of the song. I was so thrilled by this moment, I decided to share it on my Facebook page for the benefit of family and friends, just to share a little piece of evidence that we are hardwired to sing and dance. Well, at last count, my simple text post had received 198 likes or reactions and 72 comments. And this included people I hadn't heard from for years on Facebook who are starting to respond to this post as it gains momentum. My friends were sharing their own stories and then beginning to talk to each other, and an entire conversation about music as a healing property for the elderly had ensued. Unbeknownst to me, I'd also inadvertently posted in the middle of New Zealand Music Therapy Week. I was blown away by the reaction. I had no idea this simple post would create such a reaction. So this experience on my personal Facebook page really made me stop and think. What compels people to respond and share on social media? Becoming the engaged community that we long for as arts organisations and artists. And I realised my post had touched on three key drivers for this: emotional connection, a common experience, and currency and newsworthiness. So in the end, people connect emotionally with our brands, and that is going to be what inspires them most to engage with us. So the author of this quote, who's a digital product manager, Stacey McGurk, says that without an understanding of engagement, it's difficult to understand the value of social media marketing, making it really difficult to measure the impact. Engagement can be defined and measured in many ways, but in its simplest terms, engagement is the interaction between people and brands on social networks, which is what we want. And digital engagement is facilitated by our content, everything we post, publish and share. Yet, content remains one of the biggest challenges for many of the arts organisations in New Zealand we have worked with. And this is the reason, primarily, we all have a lot to do. So if we're a 1, 1.5 or 2-person band, we have a lot to do. If we're responsible for marketing, we have a lot to do. And even if we're responsible only for digital content or social media in a larger team, we still have a lot to do. And when you have a lot to do, finding or creating content requires a significant shifting of the mind gears. And grasping the continuing changes and developments of a range of digital platforms is difficult when your head's not in it all the time. There can be a fear of getting it wrong, and some organisations just aren't putting themselves on the audience's shoes and dropping their promotional veneer. And if our audience has lapses in public-facing activity, we feel there is nothing to say. Now, what we need to know is how to generate digital content that not only populates our hungry digital media channels, but genuinely achieves the engagement we're seeking, but in a way that's streamlined and straightforward and we can actually achieve realistically in our organisation. So that's why we're here today, really. So when we talk about engagement, this is what we really want to see in our social media posts. We want to see lots of likes and lots of comments and positive sentiment. Like on this post here from SF MoMA in the wake of their grand reopening, highly publicised reopening. We want to see audiences engaging in our places and venues and engaging with each other, facilitated by us. And this sort of genuine conversation between organisations and audiences, in this case the Royal Albert Hall, reposted on Instagram a photo that one of their audience members had taken of the hall and thanked them for taking it, and then there was a response from that person as well. So in each of these three instances, these organisations have built brand equity as a result of these posts, and the engagement on the post is helping their content to be delivered to more followers. Brand equity is that power derived from the goodwill and name recognition that your brand earns over time and ultimately translates into things like sales. So how exactly is engagement measured in the digital content world? So here is how the common social media platforms know a user is engaged. On Facebook, they have liked or reacted, commented, shared or clicked. On Twitter, they've liked or retweeted or replied. Twitter even tracks things like media engagements, whether or not they opened the photo, for example, played the video, whether they expanded the detail of the tweet. LinkedIn is looking at clicks and likes and comments and shares. Same on Instagram, likes, comments, mentions, and YouTube as well, likes, comments, shares, and it even tracks things like, did someone add your video to their playlist? So engagement metrics can be found in your analytics, and note that it's not about follower numbers and growth or reach or impressions. Those aren't so much engagement. It's about whether someone actually interacted with your brand via your post. This is interesting. This comes from a post that the New Zealand String Quartet put on their page, a charming moment between Helena Pole and Rachel Hyde from Wellington Chamber Orchestra. And you can now open out on individual posts and see quite a lot of detail about the engagement with posts. And you'll notice that it even breaks it down to what are the likes on the shares versus on the post itself. And it also shows you something called other clicks, which is down the bottom right there, which is any post click that isn't a link click or a photo view or a video play. So anything that's a click outside of the content of the post. So it might be that someone's clicked on the name in the comments or on the like count or something like that. But it is showing another level of engagement with the post, so that's quite useful to know. And Twitter also gives you quite a lot of insights into individual posts and calculates an engagement rate, which is the number of engagements divided by the number of impressions or opportunities to view. So we should be regularly looking at these analytics to see how our individual posts or tweets perform. And really, it's all about, once you see those that get traction and engagement, it's about doing more of them. So it's a really good exercise to go in, and it's a crucial exercise to go in and check what's doing well and what's not, and then doing more of what's doing well. So when it comes down to it, emotional content that gets an emotional response is the most shared content. And a real prime example of this is the Humans of New York photography project that provides a worldwide audience with daily glimpses into the lives of strangers on the streets of New York City. I'm sure most of you have heard of this. And read through the comments under any post, you'll see masses of empathy and a deep desire for community amongst followers and commentators. And I just popped this here too because it's interesting that Facebook has now become more granular with its reaction button, so you don't just like something, you can now love it or laugh at it, feel sad or angry, or be wow. By the way, Facebook is counting these in the same way as likes, so it's inferring that person wants to see more of that type of post even if they're angry at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see if they get more granular with their response with the algorithm there. And this was an interesting study by an organisation called BuzzSumo. It's a content management tool that they produced, and they analysed the top 10,000 most shared articles across the web and mapped each one to an emotion. And this is a breakdown of the emotions. So awe, laughter, amusement and joy are the emotions that they saw inspired the most sharing. So getting a bit more practical here, that's the backdrop, that's what we're thinking about. But what types of content are most likely to be liked or shared? So we've done quite an analysis and looked at a lot of commentary around the place about content. And I've pulled out 4 areas or types or themes of content. It's platform agnostic. It can happen across any of these platforms that we use. But these are the ones that are proven and known, most proven to get engagement. And each of them is very relevant to us as arts organisations. And I did read also that your content must help your audience in one of 3 ways. First, curiosity, be the first to know, behind the scenes, that type of thing. The second is to give them tips, tricks, how-tos, or pass along value. And the third is to evoke emotion, tell a story, or special moments. So, you know, again, the latter explains why my father's story got such a response on Sunday. So, the first piece of type of content that gets the most engagement, and this is not just across the arts sector, but it's across all other sectors as well. It's so relevant to us, it's brilliant. It's about pulling back the curtain and giving people a glimpse behind the scenes. So this comes down to the whole concept that people love to know about the life of the artist behind the work. The interesting thing, you know, is that it's in other sectors as well. I remember I've talked about before a really great series that Vanity Fair magazine did where they showed their staff members' desks and how they set them up and how they decorate them. 2 decades ago, I was taking group booking organisers into the Royal Albert Hall in London to gape at dancers during their pre-performance warm-up. But now we can open the doors and provide that glimpse via digital content. So a couple of examples. I know most of you will know what I mean, but this is just a recent one the other day from Australian Ballet opening up the suitcase of a dancer who was heading off to Adelaide and showing all the point shoes. And, of course, this started a whole conversation around the number of point shoes that a dancer needs in a performance. But, you know, just looking at the number of likes, the number of comments that immediately came onto this post, people love this stuff, and we are rich with this sort of content. Periscope, more and more organisations, arts organisations are experimenting with Periscope, the video streaming app, which allows users to post live video streams of what they're doing at that very moment. And it can post automatically to their Twitter feed, and you can see that something is live right now. So this was one where I logged in at Edmonton Opera, did a pre-show talk, just a typical sort of pre-show talk you would go to in person, and they were trialling it out and they opened it up, and not many people watched it at the time, but I enjoyed coming in and commenting to them and getting a response. And I've noticed that Periscope is serving a need which is quite interesting, which is it's a sense that I'm walking down the street past the arts organisation and they just happen to open the stage door and beckon me in. Because that's what's happening to me as a user. I'm just on Twitter, I'm looking at something and up it pops that they're live, or they're coming up live as an insight into, it could be a pre-show talk, it could be a lecture, it could be a little venue tour. I've seen venue tours. There's all sorts of things that you can trial on Periscope, and it's a great tool to do this behind the scenes, give you a glimpse content. Facebook is also offering now Facebook Live, where you can do a live video stream straight from your Facebook page. So you might be making an announcement or taking people, again, on a tour, as this paleontologist did recently, last month I think it was, from the American Museum of Natural History. It was very natural and raw and relaxed, and he took us around the exhibits, and it was great. I was sitting at my desk, I was able to log in while I was working, kind of be straight in there. Gave me that real sense of I'm part of something, and then I immediately wanted to share it and tell people, because I guess I was motivated by being one of the first to know here that this was going on. And so just any kind of behind the scenes look, utilising the native applications, the functionality, like the way you can put multiple images into Twitter. People love it. They just love to see exhibitions being built. They love to see artists at work. You know, and it really does build trust and interest in your brand, and it's very shareable content, which is what we're talking about here. And if, like Lindsay at Festival's Colour, you have a beautiful surroundings and that are intrinsic to your brand, Festival's Colour in Wanaka, then utilise this as well. It's not exactly behind the scenes, but it kind of is sharing what it's like where we are, and here's a glimpse of today's scene of the lake and that type of thing. And I know that Lindsay has said to us, I think you're on the call now, Lindsay, has said to us that this content really does get a lot of traction and a lot of shares. And a reminder that every time you share, you are increasing your brand's impact, and that's what it's all about. So the second piece of content that is known to get really great engagement is showcasing your team, the people behind your organisation, behind your brand. So employee-centric posts are known to get engagement because they show your brand personality, they show that your staff are like them, are like the users. It inherently shows that you treat your employees well, which gives your brand really good, people a really good feeling about you. And it's another example of exclusive behind-the-scenes insights. So a few examples we noticed: Indian Ink Theatre Company introducing their staff in various ways. Love the sort of warm, friendly engagement. You can see the number of reactions. They got 41 likes at the time, which is, you know, pretty good. And then there's examples like this one, another just a brand in the US who have just sharing what they do for their staff on a Friday evening and getting a lot of response and engagement on that. Tessitura Network, they arts and cultural software, they showcase staff under the hashtag live in the culture to show that their staff are engaged with culture naturally and are really passionate about the sector and can feel empathy for the clients and users. And this is a really lovely one, which is happening at the moment. It's Houston Grand Opera have done a play on the humans of New York, idea, and done Humans of HGO, which is basically when you go across to this is tweets, but you click across to the Instagram feed and see a lovely interview with each of them that follows a standard format. So each of these talk about their job duties, their favourite musicians, where they went to, where they studied, their dream vacation spot, and their best memory of Houston Grand Opera. And they're just really delightful, really lovely, and they're doing various stuff in the admin and artistic and production areas. So the third way that you can create engaging content, and this is great where you don't necessarily have to create the content, that you can curate it, is to become a trusted source. It's to become known as a curator of quality content on your specialist subject matter. And this makes people, and this is interesting when Catherine talks in a moment about algorithms, this will help people come to you and not necessarily be reliant on your content being delivered into their feeds, because they know you're a trusted source. And what this is all about is they're not willing to dig to find the content of that specialist area, so they need you. And so the true example of this, some of you may follow Thomas Cott, who until recently was delivering the Use Cott Mail email, but now he has still has the Twitter feed. And he is curating content all the time. So if you look at his tweets here, he is taking existing content and adding his spin on it, adding his trusted voice, and sort of giving additional information to add value to this content. So each of these pieces of content here you can see is someone else's content, but he has gone to the effort of finding that content and gathering it together, aggregating it and presenting it. So because I'm interested in the subject matter, and I trust him, it's really easy for me to, or compelling for me to go to his feed and look at it regularly. So you can also do this as an arts organisation. You don't have to be a consultant or a commentator. Arts organisations can also be authorities on their subject area. And it's certainly, our Twitter feed, audience connection, is really amplifying what I do in my work advising arts organisations. And this is just an example of how I took it one step further. One morning, sitting at my desk live, watching live the National Arts Marketing Project Conference keynote over in the US, live from my desk because it was being live streamed. And I just thought, well, I'll engage with Beth Cantor, the keynote speaker, and make a comment that I'm doing this. And she immediately, as soon as she finished her presentation, I was looking at tweets, engaged back with me. It really amplified the engagements on my tweet and just built a bit of relationship with her. And you'll notice that I did a screenshot. I always try and put an image in a tweet because tweets with images get so much more, there's various statistics about how much more traction they get. So just the last piece of content that I wanted to talk about is the audience curated content and submissions. And this is something that can happen in a number of ways. So on the simplest way, and those of you who watched our Instagram Google Hangout recently would have seen that Auckland Festival talked about how one of their strategies is very much was to repost content from their, that they could find about them online. So this is an instance where they found someone's posted a great photo of Caraboss and they reposted it on Instagram and it also very much acknowledged the original photographer. And that is a really nice way of utilising audience content. So searching on keywords on social media and finding what people are saying about you and then reposting it. And then the other one that's very easy to achieve and popular, well, not easy to achieve, but it's easy certainly to set up, is to encourage users under a particular hashtag to share their own content. And this works particularly well on Instagram, but can be carried through to Twitter. So this was an Air Canada promotion where they were celebrating their first direct flight between Toronto and Amsterdam. So they invited their Twitter and Instagram followers to participate in a contest for a chance to fly there. And all they had to do was share an image that showed their love for Amsterdam, including the hashtag #LoveForAmsterdam and their own Twitter handle. And of course that creates a whole lot of momentum and a great way to run a contest and get people engaged and involved. And various arts organisations have done variations of these. So just to sort of wrap up on this section, we live in a visual world. So I don't think I need to remind any of you that content with visuals get much more response, whether that's images, infographics, short videos, memes or inspirational quotes across images, that type of thing. All of these things are infinitely more likely to be shared. So at any time that you can turn your post into a post with an image, or if you're linking to something on Twitter, not just relying on it, it doesn't always display in the feed on mobile phones or things, so just maybe doing a screenshot as well of what you're linking to, you will always get more engagement with an image added. So I'm just going to, oh yes, I just did want to say this is out of our Optimizer program, and we looked at Facebook engagement on Facebook posts, and the average engagement was 132 engagements being likes, comments, shares or clicks. But the highest was quite high. It went from 18 to 1630 on a post, and the highest was quite high. So if we looked at the median, it was 69 engagements on a single post. So there's a little metric for you to maybe compare yourself to. And we had an outlier, which is the New Zealand International Comedy Festival, who just can't handle the news. Facebook post really just went off the scale at over 62,000 shares. So there you go. They were calling on currency and humour there. So just pausing briefly, if anyone has any questions, we are stopping at the end for a couple of questions and we can answer questions afterwards. But just a brief pause if anyone wants to ask anything before I hand over to Catherine to talk about the algorithm. And also we're keen to hear if you've had any great examples of content that really worked for you. So just pausing for a moment, and Helen can help me facilitate any questions if there are any.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, you can type it into the chat box, or you can potentially, no, you can't unmute yourself because of the audio issues. That might be too challenging. But if you're thinking about a question along the way, feel free to just drop it into the chat box, and we can always come back to it at the end. Again, if you've got anything interesting to share, it might be difficult for us to unmute you just because it's creating a few issues. But yeah, we'd be interested to hear, even if you could briefly describe it in the box on the left-hand side. I think we should probably
we'll continue for now.
On. Yeah,
especially since we started a bit late.
Yeah.
So. Right, all right. I'm just doing a little handover to Catherine, so just bear with us for a moment while we do that. Okay.
Hi, everyone. It's Catherine here. I'm just going to take over for a little bit to talk about understanding the algorithms. For me, for the accounts that I look after, understanding the algorithms is one of the trickiest parts because they are continually evolving and updating, and so you can sort of get a grasp on them, but then they'll shift and they'll move. I find the best place to keep an eye on updates is via the channels all have their own blogs, and that's sort of, there's a lot of rumours that go around, but that's the most trusted source. So first of all, looking at Facebook and how the algorithm currently works there. Facebook was one of the first channels, was the first channel to really introduce an algorithm, and I know many of you have sort of struggled to grasp how that works. In the basic sense, when a user opens Facebook, the newsfeed delivers the stories that they're most likely to engage with based on past interest and interaction. The Facebook newsfeed analyzes every post based on 4 key areas. So the first being who posted it. Is this someone who the person has engaged with frequently in the past, or is it a brand that they always click on the content of? The second thing is the kind of content. Is it a photo or video? So if I always like photos or engage with photos, or if I always watch videos, then I'll get more photos and posts with photos and videos in my feed. The third thing is how many interactions a post has. So a post that already Facebook can see has lots of people engaging with it, so it has a lot of comments and likes, will be ranked higher. That one, for me, I find a little bit tricky because how do you get those organic likes to begin with? So that one's a bit of a tricky one. And the fourth one is when it was posted. So they'll try and deliver the most recent post first, but in some instances, it may be if you haven't been on Facebook for a day or two, you might have missed a story a couple of days ago that they deem really important. So that will come to the front. So you do see posts, not just the most recent, but some older ones. After these four factors are assessed, every post is given a score. So you'll see on the screen there. And these scores determine where it will sit in your newsfeed. And the score is different for every user. So you might put a post up and for a certain percentage of your fans it will be ranked higher, but for another percent it will be ranked lower based on those other factors. So then they get, when you open Facebook, those stories get locked into place, so they get ranked and then sorted into your newsfeed. And then every time you log into Facebook, that same post, that same process repeats. So the stories that previously you viewed will be locked in where they were. And Facebook sort of tests the success of this quite frequently. You would have seen that you get asked for a survey. So do you like this post? Do you want to see more of this? And they also actually have users go into Facebook and they sit them down and they get them to rank their newsfeed, and then they see how that compares to the Facebook algorithm. So they are continually working on, making sure that the algorithm is working for you. In terms of what you should do, they suggest that writing compelling headlines is steering clear of overly promotional content. It's actually, they state that anything that a post that says share, like, or comment in it will get ranked lower. So they don't want you to overtly be asking people to do these things. Trying new content forms and then remembering what works well for your audience. And then utilizing Facebook audience optimization. And I'm not sure if many of you are trialing this. I've just started trialing it recently. You actually have to turn it on in your settings. But this allows you, when you put a post on Facebook, to go one step further and say who you think this post might be relevant to. And so for us, and we can select a few different art forms that it might be relevant to. And this helps them do their job, in which in turn they sort of see you a bit more favourably. And if it works, if your posts sort of get response from people who are kind of engaging with the interest that you selected, then you'll keep getting kind of bumped up the news feed. If anybody has any questions about how to turn that on and how to start using that, I'm happy to answer that at the end or after this webinar. So the next channel that is using the algorithm is Twitter. So Twitter sort of came a bit later to the algorithm. They only introduced a change last year. So traditionally, Twitter, your news feed was delivered in chronological order. So you saw the tweets, every single tweet listed, and when you logged in, it was just from when you logged. Yeah, they displayed that way. But they found, like what was happening on Facebook, users were missing a lot of content. Particularly if you follow accounts internationally, so if you're following accounts all around the world, you're going to miss half the day. So Twitter has introduced two new features that affect what you see. The first being while you're away, and the second, show me the best tweets first. While you're away was added last year, and this feature acts as a recap of the best tweets you may not have seen otherwise based on accounts you engage with frequently or users your sort of engagement. You can't turn the feature off, but how often you see the while you're away depends on how frequently you're going into Twitter. So if you're not opening the app very often, then you'll see it. Yeah, they'll present it to you more. But if you're sort of in there every half hour or hour, if you're following things, you might not get as many while you're away posts. And the second feature is Show Me the Best Tweets First. So the Show Me the Best Tweets First feature was introduced in February this year. And this one is more similar to Facebook's newsfeed because it actually changes the order that the content appears on your timeline. And this is based on a tweet's relevancy and also your previous engagement. Twitter's algorithm puts the tweets it thinks you'll find most interesting at the top of your timeline, still in reverse chronological order. These tweets are chosen based on accounts you interact with most, tweets you engage with, and then the rest of the tweets will be displayed underneath. These tweets aren't marked, so unlike the while you're away, where you can see that these have been pulled out specifically for you, the Show Me the Best Tweets First will just appear. And they say that they normally have about a dozen or so on average, and then it will be back into your newsfeed in chronological order. And you can opt out of this feature, so you can turn it off if you just want to see a straight chronological feed. And just in terms of how to sort of ensure that your tweets are still getting a lot of engagement is utilizing visual content, as Vicki was saying before. According to a recent study that Twitter did, Facebook receive an average 35% boost in retweets. Videos get a 28% boost, quotes a 19% boost in retweets, including a number receives a 17% boost, and hashtags receive 16% more retweets. There is also talk of Twitter removing photos and video from the word count. So currently, if you add a photo to a tweet, that takes away a certain number of your 140 characters. They're looking to remove that feature, which is great because it gives us a lot more space. We can upload as many images, 3 images to a tweet, and we're not going to lose our word count, which we know is very kind of scarce on Twitter. So the next channel is Instagram. And if you are on Instagram, you would have been hard to miss the panic that set in when rumours surfaced a couple of months ago now that they were trialling an algorithm model. This came about because according to Instagram, people currently miss 70% of the content on their Instagram feeds. This algorithm isn't officially set in place, but they've started trialling optimizing the order of your feed based on the likelihood you'll be interested in the content, your relationship with the person posting, and the timeliness of the post. So all your posts will still be there, just in a different order. So Instagram has yet to announce an official launch date for the algorithm update, but you'll probably start to notice, if you haven't already, that some of your posts are displaying out of order, and this is just part of them trialing it before they roll it out on a larger scale. It is predicted that there will be a drop in engagement for some users, and it would be good to start monitoring if you're not already your engagement levels so you can see how this impact does affect you. In terms of what you should do, creating good quality, engaging content, utilizing hashtags and mentions to increase engagement, and just starting now to make an extra push for engagement. And like Vicki was talking about before about becoming a trusted source, becoming a source of images that people want to seek you out and want to come in. And one just quick thing I'd say as well is try and avoid asking followers to turn on notifications. I did try it, and I would encourage you to try it for a couple of accounts just to see how it works, because it does get quite annoying quite quickly because you get inundated with notifications. And I don't imagine this is something that users will do. If they are going to do it, I would say they're more likely to do it on a personal level, but they wouldn't be following more than 3 or 4 accounts. So if you can, try and avoid that. And the key thing is this quote here: remember, the more your audience engages with your content, the more they'll see your content. Keeping these things in mind will ensure that your content gets seen and you'll be slaying the algorithm dragon every day.
Thanks, Catherine. So yeah, just really wonderful to get that information from Catherine about the algorithm. She's been looking into it quite a lot, and I think when it comes down to it, it comes down to just always the same thing, quality content. You can't get away from having to produce content that people see to be of value and want to follow you for. So we just thought we'd wrap up today with a few of our favourite content tools. They're all pretty much, I think, 3 tools that I'm going to show you. They're just the ones that we use day to day, and we thought it might be interesting for you to see which ones we find particularly helpful. So the first one, before I do that actually, I just wanted to talk a little bit about content creation versus content curation, because this is a really important thing. We don't have to create every single piece of content that we publish, whether that be on our social channels, email, or website. If we are being a trusted source, as Catherine was talking about now, we are obviously finding other content and utilising content. I talk a lot to festivals who struggle with lack of activity between festivals, whether they're annual festivals or every 2 years. What do they post when nothing's happening, when there are no events? And there are so many things you can post. And another idea is to utilise content of other complementary arts organisations who are not in competition with you as such, or you don't feel that they are, and then using their content during your downtimes, being seen as a trusted curator, recommending other things, being a place that people can come to get a bit of a roundup of arts news. And then when it comes to the point where you're going to need their help because you have an event on, you've built some really solid relationships. And sometimes those relationships you build on social media can really enhance your broader relationships with those organisations. There is a question there about hashtags too, but I'll come back to that just at the end. Thanks for asking that. So here's a couple of examples. This is me. Some content we create, which is the first one's off the Optimise Webinar blog, and that's an example of what we've created. And then a lot of the times I'll curate content and do that thing where you actually add your spin to it, and that therein lies the value. Because if I just retweeted that, it would have it wouldn't have got 13 likes. I think it was the fact that I actually stated why this was a useful piece of content. And then a couple of other examples, again, Auckland Festival, who have done a really great mix of utilising their own content, and also this was an instance where they posted a video that Sally Woodfield had posted, and then they utilised that. So that's another example of content curation. And another one, Houston Symphony, doing their own quality content, but also recently noticed just a few days ago that they posted an article to a link about this amazing musician, Jane Little, who was the world's longest serving orchestra musician and unfortunately died recently, but they are linking to content like that as well, which is about their field of music. So a few examples there. So just remember that you can do a mix of content creation and content curation, and that will really help you. So this is just quickly going through the tools. One of my favourites is Storify. So Storify, I guess, is an aggregation tool where you can compile and aggregate content from around the web that's already published and turn them into these stories. This is one particular layout that you're seeing here, but you can do layouts that are one post at a time, and you can pull content from a range of platforms, including Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and more. And how it works is, here's a screenshot here of me editing and creating a story. So you create a title and an intro, and then on the right-hand side is your panel for finding the content that you want, either by a hashtag or a username, and then you drag and drop the pieces of content into this panel on the left, and then you can add your own curation around it. You can choose to either comment or add commentary around it, or just choose to publish a post. So it's a really great idea for publishing content on a theme, and also regenerating content that you've published before. And then you can, by the way, you can embed Storify into your website and into your emails, and you can also send them out as tweets and posts and things. Photor is a great tool for doing collage images. It has a free version that we use a lot, where you can just drag and drop images in and change the formats, and you can, on the left you can see you can have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 or more images in your collage. Really useful collage tool that we use a lot. Landscape is a tool that Catherine uses a lot, and it's by Sprout Social, who have a social media dashboard, but it's accessible to anyone. And it's a tool whereby you, as you can see, you drag one image in, and you can select which social platforms you need it resized for, and which image space within those platforms you need it for. And once it's resized them all to the right size, it saves them all nicely in a folder for you, which you can drag onto your or put onto your desktop. Remember the reposting. There's a few reposting type apps. We use Repost for Instagram, which you download as a separate app onto your phone, and then you find the image you're looking for. It creates this repost image, and it automatically credits the producer of the image, the account that the images come from, and make sure that you don't inadvertently publish something you shouldn't without credit. And just remember the in-app tools as well. So this is one I use a lot when I'm creating Storify. It's a great one. So you search on Twitter under a hashtag, for example, and then you have the more options under the search. And further down, you can select from people you follow. So if you have been very vigilant in following people and putting them into lists and things, and it enables you to kind of look at this topic from the point of view of people you are more likely to want to retweet or republish, because you're seeing them all filtered by just people you follow. And for various reasons, I can find that a very useful tool. The Facebook slideshow, a great new tool within Facebook. So when you're loading an image, you have the option to create a slideshow and add 3 to 7 photos to create. It just automatically plays as a video. And that just the other day, the Alchemy event page did this with some of the musicians. It was really effective, simple and effective way to create video. And the other one I just wanted to remind you of is the pin to top, which you can, it's possible definitely in Twitter and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really important to have a LinkedIn company page and post updates. I'm seeing a lot of engagement on this platform at the moment. And so the pin to top means that your post or tweet stays at the top until you unpin it, meaning that anyone coming to your feed can see this. So if you've got an important event coming up, a countdown to a launch or something, you can pin that to the top for as long as you need, so that it's the first thing that people see. And it is proven that you'll get more retweets and more shares because it doesn't just disappear again. So just 6 final tips. That's not just about the content itself, it's about various other things that you do with the content or consider in the context of the content. So these 6 tips are to amplify your message using hashtags, and the hashtags are, if you're on Instagram, for example, putting hashtags in there that are of topics, related to topics of interest, so that each hashtag is in a way an entry point to your content from people interested in that particular angle of the topic. I have heard that another idea of getting hashtags in there, if you don't want to put too many in the post itself and Instagram, is you can also put hashtags in the comments, and searches for hashtags will also bring up your posts if they're in the comments. The second is to engage with influencers. I think Catherine mentioned this, particularly in view of the algorithms. Like sometimes the best way to get engagement on tweets and things is to @mention people, and they're more likely to obviously retweet you or respond to you. Think mobile, so try not to be too lengthy with your posts. Think about how your content will display on mobile. Not too much text if possible. get the timing right. So you can go in, for Facebook, for example, you can go in and see when people are most likely to be on your Facebook page. Same with Twitter Analytics. So make sure that you're posting at the right time. Last week I posted something on Instagram related to an audience in a particular city and got not a response that I expected, and I suddenly realised, it'd be better to actually post that in the rush hour when people are going home on the train. This is in the US, and they're on the subway and things, and they're more likely to be looking at their Instagram feed. So I reposted it at that time and immediately got some response. So that made me think about experimenting more with timing. Segmenting your posts using the Facebook segmentation tools and things to get a higher percentage engagement, because you're going to people more likely to respond. And be sure to be responsive, reply to comments and give thanks, because more often than not that results in another retweet or a post or a reply. But in the end of the day, it all comes down to the quality of your posts. And I know you all have quality content, and hopefully looking at it through these 4 lenses that I've given you of the different themes of content will help you to sort of think about how you can improve that quality. You can go to the Optimise blog or the previous Optimise videos and webinars, and there's quite a bit of useful stuff in our recent Google Hangouts, our conversation starters around Instagram, Twitter and Facebook particularly, and they're all on the Created New Zealand YouTube channel, giving you the shortest link I could give you for that, or you can go to the channel and look for the playlist. So I know that we're finishing a few minutes late because of starting late, but Helen, do you want me to quickly look at Sue's question here?
Yes, yeah, please do.
So I'll try and interpret your question. I have a question. How accurate seems to be with hashtags and @ My understanding is hash is pretty general and @ are more. Yeah, so an @ tag is really, it's a handle or an Instagram or Twitter handle, for example, or the person's Facebook name. So that has to be completely accurate so that they get alerted and they get in their notifications that they received that. Hashtags, a hashtag has to be accurate if you're trying to reach the people who are following those hashtags. So say I was posting something and it was on the topic of social media, it would be a smart move for me to go #social media. And I choose what hashtags by doing a bit of looking around and research and trial and error to see what hashtags are in use, how many people are posting under those sorts of hashtags. And that shows me that it's a live hashtag and there are people who would have saved that hashtag as a search. You can create any sort of hashtag you want. You can create your own hashtag. But a couple of tips around that: don't create a hashtag for an event that's already in use. So do your research first. Make your hashtag quite specific to your event. And yeah, if you're creating a hashtag for fun, you see people create silly little hashtags and posts. They're really doing it to be sort of funny, but if you really want to connect with people with an interest in that topic, you really want to be accurate with using the hashtags that they're already, that are already out there and in high use. So hopefully that's answered your question too.
Thanks, Vicki.
So Helen, I'll just hand back to you for a moment. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody for joining us today. I know we've run slightly over, but apologies again for the late running of the session. And please take a few minutes to complete a short survey to tell us what you thought of today's webinar. It really helps us work out what we're going to provide in the future around capability, and particularly capability regarding online marketing. And so that information is really valuable for us. This is actually the final Optimise webinar in Created New Zealand's current capability building program. But as Vicki has said, please do check out the previous webinars on Created New Zealand's YouTube channel, follow the Optimise blog to keep up to date with new posts around capability and online marketing trends. And my special thanks to both Vicki and Catherine for a really excellent session again today. As Kieran says, so many great tips and tools to work with. So many, many thanks for a really great session. And thank you all for being part of it. Bye for now. Ka kite anō.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.